How much punishment can I possibly handle with my Mercedes? The hurt just never seems to end, and we've gone through a whole plethora of issues, from warranty challenges, catastrophic failures, broken body panels, as well as all kinds of weird check engine lights and electrical gremlins. And now, unfortunately, with the warranty have just expired, even though there's some existing outstanding pre-existing conditions, the dealers don't want to handle it, the car keeps letting us down, and I want to share the whole story with you right now. Let's get into it now.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
When we first bought this car, it was merely a couple years old. It had a very small amount of miles, at about 30,000 kilometers, 20,000 miles or so. But when we sat down with the dealer, they offered up a great discounted extended warranty, wheel, rim protection package, as well as glass and dent removal. All of this, they added a little bit extra. Of course, it did cost us extra, and I'm normally not an advocate for extended warranties, but in this case, we did actually get some of our money out of it. But I want to talk about some of the key issues that we've had with this car, because we bought it initially, albeit it's dirty right now, but we love the car, the way it looks. We like the way it drives. It has all of the technology inside, outside. It's a beautiful car. And this particular combination of this blue with the bone colored or beige or light colored interior is absolutely stunning in my own personal opinion. Had some nice upgrades, there's some shadow trim upgrades, and it definitely has the AMG package, so there's some details on the wheels that we got. So we fell in love with this car. That's how we got here. We looked at it, we enjoyed it, we drove a few of these, and they all sort of just delivered the basics. You know, the C300 gives you your basic drivetrain. It's that 2-liter turbo 4, and we thought, okay, it's not a hot rod, but it'll work, it'll suffice. We did a little research, and you know me, I know these cars in and out. And of course, like anything, you research all over the forums, you know people, you hear people, you talk to mechanics. I have friends that work on these cars all the time, and you get, you know, the ins and outs. When you see consistencies or issues that are constantly out there, that's when you have to pay attention, because every car will break and every car can fail. But I truly feel that this has been a Friday built vehicle. Okay, we bought it with very low miles, and we had what was left of the outstanding initial factory warranty. It was good. Life was grand. Low miles, we didn't put a lot of Ks on it. You know, we probably only put 8 to 10,000 kilometers a year on the vehicle. And so we didn't overuse it, but we also did use it regularly. It's not the vehicle that sat in the garage all the time. It actually gets used. Gentle driving, always take care of it, avoid the potholes, avoid the bumps. And yet we had a very interesting, peculiar experience. It has all this great fenders and detail, but there's a good level of ride height. As you can see, it looks sporty, but there's all kinds of elevated ride height. It doesn't sit particularly low like a lot of sportier cars, but yet we were driving down the road one day, set of train tracks, we drove over it, and it's a set of tracks that we drive over almost every single week, and we know exactly what they deliver. We drive over it with multiple vehicles. You know, I have a truck as well. We've used our other cars, and we've driven over them, and they're actually a well-groomed set of tracks. Well, we drove over it one day with this car, and all of a sudden, bang, there was a hard thud. And it was bizarre because it sounded particularly abrasive and harsh. When you look at these vehicles, they have all kinds of great body panels, but you'll notice you have this quarter section right here, and it's segregated by a bumper here, and you'll notice the line, and you've got this piece right here. And if you look along here, this is all one continual piece along here. When we hit those tracks, this piece cracked, I heard a snap and a bang, and this piece snapped and dropped, and it was probably down about 3/4, 2/3 to 3/4 of an inch. This actually dropped. And even still, after we took it to the dealer under warranty, which they fixed, you know, we still find that there's some play in here. You see this? Now it's plastic, it's gonna have some give, absolutely. But it doesn't feel like, even after they initially fixed it, it's still spread here a little bit. This gap is actually a little bit wider than this gap. So we're not overly excited about the overall build quality. We're finding those types of issues, plastics on the exterior of the vehicle, don't necessarily hold up all that well. At the same time that happened, I want to share with you what happened inside the car. And this speaker that we see right here, I'm going to get in because it's kind of cold out there today. But when we hit that bump, this speaker in the door, there's one here and there's one over there. That speaker right there actually popped inside the door cavity. Yes, that's right. How can that possibly happen? Well, everything's fastened with plastics. We know that. Every car nowadays is pretty much fastened with plastics and snap together fittings. But I've never had that on any car I've ever owned. I've hit some bad potholes. I mean, we're living up here in Canada. The roads are brutal. And I've driven a lot. I've been driving for 35 years. I know it kind of dates me. I've never had body panels break off by hitting a small pothole or a set of train tracks. And these weren't even that harsh of a track. We're seeing stuff like this, plastics that do come apart. Not only that, I mean, you listen to that. So there's all kinds of slop in there, and none of that, those plastics seem to be holding up all that well. But it doesn't begin and end there. I mean, okay, we know there's some flimsy plastics. In my own personal opinion, these cars are not built like the tank that they're supposed to be built like. Now, I have a lot of people that reach out to me and say, hey, I have a German version. I have one from Europe and it's holding up and it's absolutely bulletproof. Well, I can tell you, and I can personally attest that this one is not one of those same vehicles. I don't know if it's the factory. I don't know if they use different parts here in North America, but I promise you, in my experience, these cars don't hold up. But I want to talk about a few other things. Firstly, you know, what we had here is a situation where obviously the lights, okay, right now I'm going to turn this on. And as we turn this on, we'll notice everything's clear right now. It's good. No weird check engine lights, no weird strange anomalies, no lighting conditions, exactly how you expect it to run, right? That's the way I would expect it. I mean, we try to keep our vehicles maintained by the book or even beyond the book. And so things were good there. But during the time at which we had warranty, so before the warranty expired, earlier this year in January, when we had our very first cold snap. So two things happened here. First of all, service tender said, hey, it's time, the countdown's on, you have to get your vehicle in for servicing. So we booked the car in for servicing. We took it down to the local dealership. They went through it, they did the servicing, you know, on I believe it was on a Saturday, if I'm not mistaken. It was, you know, probably running half staff. So we brought the vehicle in, they did an oil service and a couple of other minor things. Pretty standard service routine, right? But I looked at the invoice, so there's a paperwork that we had as a result of that service work, because, you know, we like to keep our records. Apparently, they did an engine shampoo. They did a full engine cleaning, spray down. Okay, it was in the invoice. It was in the service work order. Now, we never asked for that. I don't like doing that. And anybody, and I advocate for this all the time. You all probably know. You never ever spray pressurized water under an engine compartment anymore. Could you get away with it 30, 40 years ago? Absolutely. Maybe you know, the worst case, you have to take apart your points in your distributor cap and then wipe it all out, because sometimes you get water in there and it would sputter and it wouldn't run right. That was the worst thing you had to deal with. Now, pressurized water under the engine compartment is going to lead to a lot of potential issues. There's lots of plugins, electrics, sensors, modules, and while some of it is treated for weather conditions, and, you know, a lot of these dealers are going to tell you, well, you know, everything's sealed and it's the way it's designed, it should be able to tolerate that. Any mechanic who's been doing this for a long time will tell you that's never a good idea to completely spray down your engine compartment, and specifically with pressurized water, where it can push water in the backside of connectors, it can push water underneath in other sealed, unsealed areas. It's just never a good recipe. But this was happening. Now, I don't know if this was a result. It could have been totally inconsequential. To that point, we never had an issue with any weird dash lights. But after that day, that shampoo, the oil service, we literally drove the car out. It wasn't far down the road, and all of a sudden a host of dash lights started coming on. All kinds of illuminated lights rolling through the fault codes. Left, high beam, cross, you know, warning detection. All these different sensors started rolling through as faults and warnings and alarms, and they started rolling through. It wouldn't even give our speedometer because these faults were rolling. They'd alternate one to the next fault, to the next fault, to the next fault. There was probably, I don't know, 8 to 10 to 12 different faults that were rolling through the dash. What in the heck is that going on? So I flipped out. I called the dealer. I talked to the service manager. He said, bring it in. We'll take a look at it. We did that the following day or following week. They scanned it. They said, yeah, there were some existing codes. Maybe it's the extreme weather, because after that service, what we did was we took the car, we parked it. We generally park it outside, and we all of a sudden saw some extreme weather, okay? We hit some minus 25, minus 30 weather, and we thought, oh, maybe there was something weird there. And the dealer said, you know what, maybe it's just because it's extremely cold. The battery might crank slowly. And we know a lot of these cars are really susceptible to a low voltage condition. It can really wreak havoc with computers. So we took their advice and we said, you know what, we'll entertain that. And we actually went down to the dealership, got a factory Mercedes battery, installed it, rebooted it, turned everything on, and life was good for a few days. And then the lights came back on again. Okay, after the dealer reset it the first time, said it was a battery, we then went back, installed the battery, lights went away, lights came on again a day or a couple days later. We called up the dealer, they checked it again, all of a sudden, lo and behold, yeah, there was something latched, I don't know what that is, we'll reset it for you. Boom, they reset. We all assumed, and the service manager even told us, you know, I think it was just something that maybe didn't get captured the first time, so we reset it, we wiped all the codes, you should be good to go. And we drove away, and it was good. Life was grand. Remember, all this time, we still had that factory warranty was running out, but we still had what was left of the outstanding extended warranty, which covered major components, electrical, CPUs, modules, and all other major components. So that was still covered till October of 2024. Now, another scenario, while we had warranty, okay, and I want to throw this in there, so this is all in tandem with these issues with the electrics that come and go and seem to have faulted, but then they kind of went away for a good part of the summer. But there was another issue that we started noticing. My wife came home from work, the windows were down in the summer, it was warm out, but we hear this weird squeaking noise from the front end. And I brought it to the dealer. We had warranty. I don't even know what they did, but to be honest, it was in the shop for a good day or 2 days. They said they went through top to bottom, they stethoscoped it, they looked at it, they pulled the wheels off, and they said they couldn't find anything that was wrong. What we're dealing with here is, okay, that front end, whether it's the left, it's kind of hard to tell, the left side or even the right side, as the vehicle's rolling really slowly, and we notice it more so when you're turning into the driveway, so you're kind of turning a little bit, that you're hearing a shoo, 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 shoo noise, okay? You hear it distinctly in the front end. Now, it's kind of hard to say, you know, you hear it more at slow roll. When you're driving down the highway, you don't hear anything, it kind of goes away. You have to do it at really low speeds. So it's really odd, it's an obscure kind of sound. So after the car was sitting in the dealer lot or dealership for a day or two, they said they looked at everything, they couldn't find anything wrong with it. And they said, well, maybe it's just your tires, okay? But then they asked us, well, do you have another set of tires that we can put on to try it out, just to test that theory? I said, we don't have any extra tires. You're the Mercedes dealer. Can't you figure out how to diagnose this properly? Don't you have some spare tires? You could put a set of matching spare wheels on the front. They signed off as saying, you know what, nothing found, everything's good. But I like how it all happened during warranty. We took it in for diagnosis during warranty, and there's a sign off and it's all good. I almost guarantee you that sound continues, because I want to try to demonstrate it and maybe listen very closely. Let's just put it in gear and just slow roll. It might not be that obvious because we're on snow here, and maybe it's tires, and maybe I'm eating crow, but it doesn't sound like anything I've heard before, and it's a very rhythmic. So it feels like there's something not working properly. Now hopefully we can kind of hear something now. Again, you can hear it on asphalt for sure and pavement. So maybe that's not the best demonstration because we're on crunchy snow right now. And it definitely does not sound normal. And it definitely doesn't sound like tires. And tires, you know, if you're gonna get kind of a squeaky or crunchy noise from tires, you're probably gonna hear it consistent. As the tires are rolling, you're gonna hear that. It's not gonna be. So there's clearly something wrong there. We identified this. They could not get resolution. We're not satisfied. Okay, fine. Maybe it's one of these anomalies you live with for the life of the car. I don't know. I'll let you know how that goes. But before I share the latest of what's going on with the dealership and the struggles that we actually had recently with the new set of codes that popped up again because they came back this winter. Here, I want to share this bulletin with you. So we have this warranty extension intake line, partial load ventilation valve. I don't know if any of you are familiar with this. Basically what they're saying is this notice is sent to you in accordance with the requirements of the Canadian Environmental Protection Act. And I'm going to break this down. So it's yet another concern that we have, you know, regarding quality control. And I know a lot of vehicles, we know Ford and a lot of these other makes are leading the recalls. This is more of a bulletin driven by emissions issues rather than a recall. They're saying it's not safety per se, but what we have here is Mercedes-Benz MBAG has determined that on certain models, and ours being one of them, with gasoline engine M274. This so impacts the M274 engine, which is that 2-liter turbo 4. The intake line is a full assembly and consists of a partial load ventilation line, including a partial load ventilation valve, oil separator, intake line, and full load ventilation line. In case of failure of one of these components, the entire assembly must be replaced. MBAG has identified its two main root causes, which may lead to the possible need to replace the intake line. First, a leaking partial load ventilation valve located on the partial load line through which crankcase and charge air distributor line are connected could lead to impairment of the switching function of the partial load ventilation valve due to manufacturing defects of the supplier. A pressure change in the intake manifold. Oh, pressure change? You mean like boost pressure? Intake manifold? It's a turbocharged vehicle that's constantly changing, right? So a pressure change in the intake manifold could be used to measure a change in pressure, and diagnosis of the partial load ventilation valve could be carried out if the pressure variation is too low. During diagnosis, a switching defect in the partial load ventilation valve is detected. Second, at low temps, the partial load ventilation valve could be blocked by frozen condensed water. This could lead to an insufficient pressure variation being measured by the pressure sensor of the intake manifold, causing switching defect of the partial load ventilation valve. Wow, that's a word, that's a mouthful. Essentially what they're saying is they're extending the warranty to 15 years and 241,000 kilometers on this particular part. That's if you assume these cars last that long. I think they kind of know that most of these cars won't even survive that long. You know, with what I've seen with the plastic components, the rattly engine, some of this other weird noise from the front end, possibly transmission or differential noise. I mean, with all these things that we've seen in the electrics and the failures, I have very little to believe that this car will even last for 15 years or 240,000 kilometers. I really don't see that happening, but that's my own personal opinion. So it says an authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer will check and replace defective intake lines, partial ventilation valves on affected vehicles. So something else gets broken on the way in and you're gonna feel a burn later on when some other weird leak develops or some other weird fault code develops. That's what will likely happen. So this has kind of been the latest of calamities of this Mercedes, the C300, and ours is a 2018 C300 4MATIC. Just wanted to share that North American model. I don't know if the European versions are any better, but this is what we have to deal with. Now I want to break this down. Again, the codes on the dashboard are yet popping up again here this year. We hit some cooler weather again and we started to see another load of other issues. More of those fault codes continued rolling through. Virtually the same lights, or should I say the exact same lights and fault codes popped up here but 2 weeks ago, as we saw back in January. Now this last go around, we talked to the service people over there at our dealership, and after do a little bit of minor digging, they plugged in because we had these fault codes again. They said, yeah, you have a bunch of fault codes related to, it looks like possibly some modules or some issue related to modules or wiring harness or light fixture. Because I was told that this fixture here, this light itself has 2 to 3 different modules. It could be any one of them that might cost $1,000 to $2,000 to replace on an individual basis. Could also be some wiring harness, could be CPU, could be a plethora of any other modules. And the manufacturer or the actual dealership said, look, it could be anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000 to $10,000, but we don't know. And we need to have you pay ante up for the costs to fix that car, or to at least to diagnose it. See, the service lady told me in her own words, yeah, we can't go any further. Any further diagnostics are gonna come at a fee. Could be $500, it could be more. I said, not a chance. I need to talk to the service manager, which eventually he called me back. We had a conversation and I basically got a little bit irate. So he came at me with the same thing. We need to do some diagnostics. And I said, yeah, that's fine, but it's on your dime. And he pushed back. He said, no, this is outside of warranty. There's nothing more we can do. I said, this is a pre-existing issue that I was dealing with in January when we had warranty. You reboot it just because it didn't become an issue until 2 or 3 months later. Now all of a sudden it's out of warranty. Now it's my problem. That's not good with me, and I'm not happy about this piece of crap. I don't even want to drive this junk anymore. I was so disappointed, and even more disappointed with the way the service people handled the situation. And when it had an issue, it was good enough to clean it. As long as it cleared, let that sucker go away with this car. And then if it comes back later, we're gonna play these games, and that's what they're trying to do. So the service manager said, look, I'll tell you what, after I kind of got a little rammy, he basically said, okay, we've got a little skin in the game. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll do the diagnostics. We'll pay for the diagnostics. We'll drill in. We'll find the problem. And we'll do that at our cost on our dime. I said, well, you know what? At least that's fair. At least let's start with that. And we'll figure out then what we need to do from here. So we agreed. But then things changed. And the worst part about this car is, if it was just my car, I would pretty much just toss it, sell it, dump it, unload it. But it's not. It's my wife's car. And she was in tears. She was in shambles. Because it's been one thing after another, after another, and after another. It has just been so punishing. Challenges with pushback and warranty claims, and you know, and getting told that, you know, it's not our fault, it's not their fault, it's not their fault, and there's nothing that can be done, but yet there's still issues. My wife is absolutely devastated with the overall result and experience with this car. So basically what we had was a scenario where when I checked the vehicle in again to have it looked at, because these new set of codes came back again, and we agreed that, you know what, let's proceed with at least the diagnostics on their dime. What ended up happening was they came out and asked me and said, look, we're gonna have to dig a little deeper. I think to get in here, we'd probably have to pull the bumper off. We're gonna have to get in behind there to look at the, you know, possibly what's going on, wiring harnesses and lights, and see what's going on there. Maybe there's a bad ground in there. Maybe there's, I basically said that you're gonna have to pull the bumper off and some other parts, probably maybe the headlight and that, to look around to see if there's something going on behind that. And initially I thought, okay, well, yeah, okay. But they said, but that's gonna be on your cost, on my dime. And at this point, they basically said there's nothing more we can do other than signing off on, me signing off on further diagnostic costs to pay for the disassembly of the front end of the car and look, you know, for these issues. It was alleged that it's a new set of codes, but it's not. I mean, we had the same fault codes rolling through there and similar conditions of weather and everything else. It was the exact same situation. And all of a sudden, after there's an agreement that they would cover cost to diagnose and get me the actual hard dollar on an estimate, then there was like a backtracking and said, look, you know what, this is going to cost you to have us take this apart. I mean, right there, I kind of just threw my hands in the air, okay? I just literally threw my hands in the air. I will say, during all of this, throughout the year, we also had a couple claims. We went in there because we had that, the glass and rim and dent protection, as we mentioned. They did fix and replace a windshield as per that protection package, because it fell within that space. We ended up with a crack and a split. We needed a new windshield, so they replaced that, of course, under the package. But they did decline the rim protection. We did have a scuff or a damage on the wheel, and they declined that. We weren't led to believe when we bought the warranty. The person that delivered the news and was selling the package did not tell us the circumstances that would cover the rim protection, okay? We were told that basically, yeah, you damage your wheels, we'll repair or replace. And it was as simple as that. But when we took it in, because we rounded a corner and that was on our doing, so we took around a corner and we scraped a wheel. So we thought, okay, well, we have that protection package, right? But what happened was, we took it in there, they declined it, and they said, well, actually, the only protection that we would give you for that rim protection is if you catastrophically damage the rim to the point where it's structurally destroyed, and you'd have to have pretty much a tire blown out and ripped to shreds too, implying that you pretty much have to blow it right over some hard curb and shred the entire wheel assembly. That was basically the way they told me this go around and why we were declined. I'm like, what kind of wheel package, protection package is that? It made no sense to me. I don't know. I'd like to hear more from you guys, because I'm learning as I go here, and I'm learning a lot of things. Some of which means I probably won't buy certain car brands again. Some of which means that, you know, you do not buy extended warranties, regardless. Some of which, you know, well, they say one thing out of one side of the mouth, but they're saying something, they're doing something else out of the other side of the mouth. And our C300 has taught me some of those lessons. And, you know, any of you have dealt with similar issues. You know, the particular one that I'm concerned with are these flashing faults, because clearly we have not gotten to the bottom of that. They rebooted it again, we drove it off, and I was refusing to pay any further costs on this. So that's an issue that seems to be like it'll be ongoing. But any thoughts? I'd like to hear more from anybody out there that's got similar experience, because it just doesn't feel like the car has done us very well. And I get it, every car breaks and there's issues, but this car right now, I'll tell you right now, here. Let me just see if I can scroll through this. It has 60,000 kilometers on there right now. 60,000 kilometers, 40,000 miles. And we've had all of these calamities and things pop up already, and noises, and I'm not sure what to say about it all. Do we keep driving it? Do we sell it? What do we do? I love the car otherwise, but it's fragile and flimsy, and body panels coming apart. It just doesn't feel like the kind of vehicle that's worth holding on to. Sorry, this is a very candid, off-the-cuff video, and it's just got me all riled up, because I feel like, you know, the car's let us down, but more importantly, you know, you've got warranty that's supposed to cover you, and then it's more of that corporate policies are the first to decline, and it feels like the first default is say no, 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 and make people scream and holler and go through all kinds of troubles and stress to get there. So anyway, I'd like to hear your thoughts. Either way, that's been our experience on this 2018 with 60,000 kilometers. Not happy. And with all of that said, if you're like me and you're possibly looking for something finally reliable, 2025 is coming around the corner, and I share some of the most reliable vehicles you can possibly find in the upcoming year. Hope to see each and every one of you on the next one. We'll see you all real soon. Bye-bye.